All right, y'all, ladies and gents, boys and girls, this is who we've been waiting on. This is what I've been telling y'all about for the last couple of weeks or so. This is one of our greatest revolutionary scholars, if not our greatest revolutionary scholar in the state of Louisiana, one of the greatest in the South. And he's been holding the stories of our people for decades. And today we're going to learn specifically about the story of the 1811 enslaved people's uprising. Y'all give it up for Baba Leon.
Good morning. How y'all doing this morning?
All right.
Pretty good, pretty good.
Students.
What we're going to do today to get you acquainted with this story is we have a performance to provide today. We're going to do two scenes where we acquaint you with key reenactments, key moments in the story of the revolt. The most important thing you want to get acquainted with is what was the aim of these noble women and men. That's the most important thing you want to get acquainted with. They will not be tactically successful in their attempt to emancipate themselves, but they will be strategically successful because they will lay the foundation for more revolts to come, and eventually their children and their grandchildren will finish the job in the Civil War. Can you hear me?
I can hear you.
All right, it's important that you can hear all of us because the tour is useless if you can't hear us.
Come on, he can hear you.
All right?
He can hear you.
Now, our artistic director for these two scenes is Professor Monique Moss. She's in charge of the entire skit that we'll be providing today. Accompanying her is Miss Tracey Elizabeth Taylor over here on my left. Accompanying her will be this brother from the Congo, globally famous percussionist Tito Sampa. And over here, accompanying them will be another performer, another cultural practitioner, Brother Edward Craft. So with that, we'll get started.
You better wade in the water, away in the water, children, away in the water. God's gonna trouble the water. You better wade in the water, away in the water, oh, away in the water. Give me out, troubling the water. Oh, you better wade in the water, children, away in the water, children, away in the water. Ola do mare, troubling the water. Ola do mare, troubling the water.
It's 1811. We're in a secret location in the Cypress Swamp, in the vicinity of the Manuel Andrew Plantation. We're making sure that there are no spies and no traitors. Are any of you taught to you in religious. It's not taught to you in public schools. This is the real life account of Louisiana's heroic 1811 Slave Revolt, the largest revolt in the history of America. Also known as the Charles Deslondes Revolt. A group of male and female enslaved rebels engaged in the organization of the 1811 Slave Revolt in Louisiana, ignited on the Andrew Plantation at the house of slave owner Manuel Andrew. The rebels discussed the aim and the goals of their collective effort to overthrow the savage system of slavery. They wield agricultural tools as weapons as they march downriver towards New Orleans. They ultimately seek to take over a vast arsenal of weapons in order to capture the city and establish the second independent Black Republic in the world. The country of Haiti was the first. Do you know where Haiti is? Do you know where Haiti is? Do you know where Haiti is? The Haitian Revolution lasted from 1791 to 1804. During that period, the revolution went through several phases of leadership, and I need you to hear me out. These are the names of the heroes who led the revolt. Repeat them after me. Vincent Holgate. Bookman Duty. Toussaint Louverture. And Jean-Jacques Deslondes. Today, that country, which was called Saint-Domingue, is known as Haiti. The rebels, they fled to try to save themselves and to save their people. However, those who were on the island of Haiti who owned human property decided to flee to Cuba, and some fled to Louisiana, which is where you live today. In 1803, President Thomas Jefferson of the United States sent a delegation to France to try to persuade Napoleon to sell this territory to the United States. New Orleans and Mississippi River, which is right behind you. Was the area they wanted to control. Why? Why do we need to control the Mississippi? Yes. Excellent. Rebel. Excellent. Number one, for having the courage to speak. Number two, for providing us with an accurate answer. It is a large trading post. Whoever controls the water, controls trade, controls economics, controls the world. The delegation was led by Robert Livingston and James Monroe, who would later become future president. So they stayed several months trying to win Napoleon over, slowly raising their bid as time went on. Meanwhile, Napoleon was losing troops, his men, in Saint-Domingue. And what is Saint-Domingue known as today? What is Saint-Domingue known as today? Hey! They're trying to fight for freedom in Haiti, once called Saint-Domingue. It was around this time that former President George Washington was successful in persuading Congress to send guns and ammunition to Saint-Domingue to help who? The French, the enslavers. They were trying to assist with the defeat of our Africans. Later, Congress passed a resolution to send $40,000 to France to help Napoleon defeat the African rebels. So your descendants who were fighting for their freedom had to contend with the French and also Americans who wanted to keep you enslaved. If the Africans won Saint-Domingue, their victory may influence revolts in the United States and other parts of the world. Do you understand what that means? If there is one group who is fighting for freedom and is successful, there may be a second group fighting for freedom and is successful. There may be a third and a fourth and a fifth and on, which is what happened in real history. Don't be afraid to be the first. The largest slave revolt in the United States would be directly inspired by the Haitian Revolution. That means you and you and you need to know who the Haitians are, because we owe the country of Haiti respect, dignity, and remembrance of their sacrifices that were made in order to liberate their people and their descendants who would follow. Aye, Bobo!
Aye, Bobo!
Aye, Bobo!
Aye, Bobo!
Today, that piece of land that the Americans wanted and the French wanted to get rid of is called what? In history. Where we got half of the geography of this part of the world from Napoleon to the Americans, that was called the what? Nice and loud. The Louisiana Purchase. Double the size of the geography owned by the Americans. How many of you know that the Louisiana Purchase Agreement was signed right here in New Orleans? You know that? Do you know where the document is? I'm going to ask Mr. Warren. Could you please tell us where the Louisiana Purchase was signed, which doubled the size of America?
It was signed.
Everybody say the pavilion. That building on the left, to the left of the church, is where the document is published. After the sale from 1803 to 1812, the old colonials and the colonial area known as the Louisiana province was divided into two territories, one southern, one northern, and then both are subordinate to the government, the federal government. Some of the French families that fled to Louisiana, and raise your hand if you know somebody with this last name. Thoreau, Bicoud, Trepanier, Dubois, Deslondes, Deslondes, please raise your hand up high. Hi, Deslondes. You're going to learn something about the Deslondes family of St. Charles and St. John. The Baptist parishes had extensive ties to the family plantations in Saint-Domingue, also known as Haiti. As these families fled to Louisiana, they sought to restart their own businesses as plantations and slave owners. So they transferred their business model from where? From Saint-Domingue, Haiti to where? Here. To their demise, however, they had not suspected that when they brought their chattel slavery with them, the seeds of revolutionary ideas of freedom came along. Among them was a laborer, a forced laborer, named Charles Deslondes, who in time would become the principal leader and organizer of the heroic 1811 Slave Revolt. So I ask you, what do you think a heroic leader of a slave revolt represents? What is the role of a heroic leader of a slave revolt? What is the role? To lead everyone to freedom. What else? If you're the leader, what do you do? Lead. What else do you do? Have to do everything. Speak. Organize. Come on. Read. Right, baby?
What about that research?
Research. Did research be started particular times? No. Research all that means is studying what you need.
If you don't mind, after bringing them back
In
here,
order to what you Mr. Deslondes
they're going to go to the Presbyterian.
and his lieutenants of both women and men represented the most advanced, class-conscious black warriors of freedom. Now, I know I'm talking to you a lot about this story, but you need to listen to what I'm saying. Listen to what I am saying. This is your history about you. And distractions have been happening since the beginning. Don't fall prey to them. To your right or your left. Focus. They thought through and created strategies on how they would emancipate themselves from savage explorers. The courageous freedom fighters secretly educated, propagated, convinced, recruited, and organized their enslaved allies for the overthrow of the class of savage exploiters and oppressors. So who's the savage in the story? Somebody? Who's the savage? Who decides who the savage is? Who? The enslavers. Now, if it were your people who were the enslaved, would you call yourself the savage? Okay, what would you call yourself? The oppressed, the what else? The victim, the prisoners. So, what does that mean to you? Who gets to tell the story creates the narrative. Why would you call yourself a savage when you're telling your story? Right? Only the one who wants to exploit you would demean you and call you a savage. When in actuality, they are the ones who are creating the terror. And so now, I repeat myself in speaking, and we move forward to a little bit more about the story, beginning with our fearless female warrior, Acra.
After 13 long, hard years. Hear me, 13 long, hard years. Our people, your ancestors, their blood flows through your body. What does that mean? That I am inside of you, and they are inside of us.
My blood.
We, our people of Haiti, have succeeded in defeating the system of slavery and establishing their own independent Black Republic. Independent, we don't own and not owned by nobody. They have installed their own sovereign state to the right to govern themselves. They defeated the almighty Emperor Napoleon Bonaparte. They defeated the oppressors, colonial rulers of France. And yes, we can defeat the American oppressors too. Black lives matter, doesn't it? So start thinking long and hard. Yes, we can defeat them with a force of united front. Right, Gilbert?
Right. After we've defeated them. But now, we must come up with a new system. A new government that would help us to grow, to survive on our own as free people. And what will we replace this horrible American system with, Charles?
Brother Gilbert, we will replace this American slave system with a second independent Black Republic, just like in Haiti, where Africans were the majority of the population on most of the plantations. We Africans in the city of New Orleans and rural parishes will govern ourselves and no longer be tortured and oppressed by a small number of greedy, money-hungry savages. Once we are victorious in the overthrow of Claiborne's Orleans territorial government, we will set up a provisional government, a temporary government, which will enable us to hold public democratic elections in order to establish a new civil government.
Yes.
We shall draft and adopt a new constitution.
Yes.
That will outline the ideals of our government rule for the people,
Yes.
by the people.
Us.
We will seize the slave owners' plantations that they
Yes.
fraudulently established on land that they stole from indigenous people. We will use the wealth and resources to build a new, more equitable economy that will benefit the numerical majority
Yes.
Yes.
rather than the numerical few.
Yes.
This will be the foundation for a true free society, a free republic, where we will be able to create better lives for ourselves, our children, and generations to come.
Hi,
A new constitution. The current laws of this land only protect wealthy whites. Like Manuel Andrew, who claims he owns me. No one is going to own me. People don't own humans. What should we consider?
I
in
can
this
tell you,
new
Gilbert.
Constitution?
I can tell you, and I'm going to tell you too. You better listen with your heart and your mind and your mind's eye. Gilbert, last night, at the meeting on Lake Marpa, we went over to the enslaved brothers and sisters' house, We went over there. The first article in the new Constitution shall read, Article 1, the people formerly enslaved inhabiting the land formerly called Orleans Territory hereby agree to form themselves into a free sovereign state independent of any power in the universe under the name of...
To be decided after we capture the city of New Orleans.
Yes.
Yes.
The new Constitution will outline the true aspirations and demands of the newly freed Africans. The new Constitution will include
Article 2.
chattel slavery is forever abolished.
Done.
Done. Article 3.
The citizens of the new republic are brothers and sisters at home. Equality in the eyes of the law is incontestably acknowledged, and there cannot be any titles, advantages, or privileges other than those necessarily resulting from the consideration and reward of service of liberty and independence.
Article 4.
The law is the same to all, whether it punishes or whether it protects.
Article 5.
No white man of whatever nation he may be shall put foot on this territory with the title master or proprietor, neither shall he be in the future acquire property therein.
Article 6.
No white man can kill, brutalize, rape, oppress, or inflict any crime against the newly freed. Whites who kill, brutalize, rape, oppress the newly freed will be subjected to punishment, jail, or given long sentences.
Article 7.
Respect for equality of African black women will be upheld.
Article 8.
The right to free speech, assembly, travel will be upheld. Passes that suppress the travel by the former enslaved will be banned.
And the new Constitution will continue. Article 9.
Freedom of all religions and cultural traditions will be upheld. Catholicism will be outlawed. Forever. Aiba, boy.
Freedom. Respect for
Freedom of all African languages will be protected.
Article 11.
An army to protect the well-being of the newly freed will be established.
And what about the new economy?
In order to provide for the social well-being of our newly freed people, all of the plantations along the Mississippi River and beyond shall become the property of the new independent republic.
Also, we have discussed adding new constitutional laws against the cruelty of pregnant women working in the fields to the day of delivery and even losing their children, taking our babies, stealing them, going back into the field the same day after giving birth, no longer knowing that memory is inside of each one of you. Go back and think that you don't have no parents, you're alone. Becoming property of somebody you don't even know who don't care nothing about you. This is your time. This is your time. Living as free Maroons and free communities will be immediately annulled.
Brothers and sisters, it has been raised as to what will we do with the whites after we capture the city of New Orleans, the capital of Orleans Territory. What will we do with them?
I got some ideas.
This is the situation at this time. Almost all the whites who live in Orleans Territory benefit from chattel slavery. Their livelihoods of their families are firmly rooted in this horrible system. This includes the overseers, the boatmen, small farmers, shop owners, retailers, notaries, and a few wage earners in the cities and rural areas. The majority of these colonial whites pledge allegiance to white supremacy. There are very few that sympathize with us. The very few who do are threatened with debt by the slave owners. Nonetheless, we will offer our allies the opportunity to live and work amongst us, but they can no longer govern us, nor can they own land to exploit us and construct disproportionately rich and lavish lives for themselves. Their children will be allowed to work and live amongst us, but only under our governance. Haiti's constitution states that no white man can reside in their country nor own land or
Why
property.
do you laugh at this story? Why do you laugh at this history? Why do you laugh at this her story? This is about
In addition, our new constitution will make provisions for new agreements with the displaced indigenous people who were forced off their lands by the Americans, especially under the genocidal actions of William C.C. Claiborne, governor of Orleans Territory. In our new constitution, we will even create new arrangements with people of African descent outside of our new republic, in the Caribbean and in the motherland of Africa.
A number of rebels also demand that the new constitution outlaw and remove all oppressive symbols. Take them down, NOLA! Take them down! This specifically includes the oppressor's favorite branding symbol, the fleur-de-lis. The removal of monuments and markers that glorify the oppressors, and the replacing of those monuments and markers with our own. With the new constitution, we will require a new flag for the new republic. We will consider suggestions for naming our new republic.
what would you name your Black Republic? What would you name your new found independent Black Republic?
Louisiana was named for King 14 of France. Those are present symbols that still here today. What are you going to do about them?
The fleur-de-lis.
What are you going to do about them?
Example. Do you know what they did using the fleur-de-lis? Do you know what the fleur-de-lis is? Do you know what the fleur-de-lis is? It is a symbol used by the country of France. But guess what else they did with that symbol, the fleur-de-lis that we see on the side of the saints, helmet, and the front of their chest? They would impale, kill our people with long spikes, with the fleur-de-lis on the tip, as the sharp spear yaw up and through the upper part of your body.
I am concerned about the federal government in Washington. Capturing the city of New Orleans may bring us victory, but what about the force of the government in Washington, whom have supported the French back in Saint-Domingue to keep the enslaved on their chains?
In discussion with many of our rebel leaders, the city under our control will mean this area will become a liberated territory. Once word gets around that we have captured the city, the enslaved will run here, seeking refuge and freedom. We will have to prepare for a long battle with President James Madison's federal government until we can completely win our freedom.
Our freedom is after us till we meet again.
Till we meet again.
That means you. Till we
till we meet again.
And before I be a slave, I'll be buried in a grave and go home to my Lord and be free. We will shout, we will rise, and we will stand for our victory. 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 Victory.
Now I see who are the rising leaders of ever. Who has the hearts? Who has the courage? Who has the strength to stand up no matter who is around? Who is watching? Yes. Listen closely. We're moving now into a place called Maurepas. Somewhere near the southwest, there's a lake called Lake Maurepas. It's the secret hiding place, the secret meeting place, and it takes place under the lights of a full moon. It's December 10, 1811. The leaders from key plantations from St. James, St. John, and St. Charles parishes. Raise your hand if you know about St. John Parish. Raise your hand if you know about St. James Parish. Raise your hand if you know about St. Charles Parish. You need to know. A discussion is taking place because there's a growing conflict between the United States and Spain, you see? They all want to control West Florida. But danger of war is looming. The danger of war with Spain and the indigenous peoples, the Greek peoples, with C.C. Claiborne's colonial government. You see, and held power. It's carnival time. How many of y'all know what time it is when it's carnival time? Are you worried about school during carnival time? No. Are you worried about your housework at carnival time? No. What you thinking about at carnival time? Party. So it's carnival time. The season is here. The slave owners, they have lavish parties with their dresses and their jewelry and all their fancy. They have parties. They're celebrating. But guess what? Slave owners are not paying attention. Which one of y'all not paying attention? Slave owners not paying attention. You know what they do? They laughing. They kicking. They floating. They stunting.
Fellow comrades, are you listening? Because tonight, Charles is going to share with you a strategy to win our freedom. After a long time of planning this revolt, the moment has come for us to act. Remember what our aim is, the second independent Black Republic. Always keep that goal in your mind. Remember, we have taken an oath that has been instilled in our blood, our bloodline, our children's future, and the generations to come. Your children's children, your children's great-grandchildren depend on what you do now. What we do now and how well we do it depends on how determined we are. We have to stay focused, how disciplined we are. We have to stay honest. Keep your mouth shut. Don't care how much the master promised you. Your loyalty resides with us. The freedom of every one of our family members is on our backs.
Don't sell out for a penny.
How bold are you? It is tyranny upon us to emancipate ourselves. Who knows what emancipation is? What does it mean to be emancipated? Say it like you mean it. To be free. Say it like you mean it. To be free. Like you own it. To be free. No more dictatorship. Many of us probably won't make it back. Are you still willing to come? Yes. Many of us. Many of us will lose our family on this road. Many of us will never have a chance to hold our children again. Are you with me? Yes. Are you with me? Yes. For our freedom?
Yes. Will you take care of the children? Will you take care of the children? Will you take care of the children? Yes. Will you take care of the children? Will you take care of the children? Will you take care of this baby for me, please? Oh, no. Son, please take care of my baby. Please take care of it. Take care of the baby. Don't you be afraid to take care of that baby. Take care of that baby. They don't want you to take care of that baby. They want you to be afraid to take care of that baby. They want you to not want to hug that baby, kiss that baby, love that baby. You take care of that baby. Take care of that baby.
It takes a village, so that means you two.
brothers and sisters, how we're gonna go forward with this new plan of our lives.
Thank you, Gilbert. My My fellow brothers and sisters, let me draw this strategy into the ground. We will launch a two-pronged military assault against our enemies. Gilbert, here, will lead a team of trustworthy comrades into the city and connect with our secret partners in the city. Together, they will launch an assault and seize Fort St. Charles, capturing the guns and gunpowder at the fort.
They call that the Jazz Museum today.
Gilbert and his team will go ahead of us and secretly enter the city. As for me, I will lead the second assault from here. Under my leadership, several of us will launch an assault against Colonel Manuel Andrew in St. John the Baptist Parish.
Yeah.
Andrew has weapons stored in his commissary on his plantation.
I got it.
We will confiscate those weapons, arm ourselves, and slay Andrew, and march down the river to New Orleans. We have placed key comrades at different plantations along the road to New Orleans. They will be our additional officers who will lead other companies of rebels. We will march along the river toward New Orleans, divided by companies, each under an officer, with the beat of drums and flags displayed. We shall be guided by two slogans. On to New Orleans!
Everybody! On to New Orleans!
And freedom of death!
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 Our officers on Jupiter, Acra, Gilbert, and Neptune. We shall initiate the assault on horseback. As we gain in number, we shall direct the fight against any resistance along the way. Very soon, we will inform the leaders of the exact date and time for the revolt. Until then, we must remain vigilant and keep a sharp eye out for spies and potential traitors.
Traitors. Who are these? Smell it!
Spies!
Traitor!
Traitors!
Don't you be a traitor. Don't you be a traitor. For hot sauce sandwich. One day, think your family is starving forever. I need somebody with some heart to come up here. I need a big giant heart up here. I'm not gonna call you, you just gonna come.
Me.
I don't care who it is, just bring that big heart with you. Bring that heart with you.
I got a big heart.
I got a bigger heart.
You, my friend, will finish the story. The story for you begins here and here. The story for you begins over here. Yeah. Yes, sir, over here. Okay. Now, what I need from y'all, I need y'all to come a little closer. Come a little closer. Because what we about to tell you is what's going to happen. Okay? Come a little closer. Let's go, let's go. Now, as our big heart tells the rest of this story, y'all don't be afraid to hug that baby, kiss that baby, love that baby. That's your people. I don't care what you are. Male, female, young, old, yellow, black, green. You love that baby. Now you let some other people give some love to that baby. Give some love to that baby. Pass that baby around. Pass that baby.
Do you wanted a baby live? Brian, I go to child you always wanted.
Spanish spy known as Augustine. On Tuesday, January 8th, just after sundown, the call was given. The slave mutiny was launched at the Andrew Plantation, located some 36 miles above New Orleans on the east bank of the Mississippi River. Today, the front of this plantation will be situated along the Mississippi River within its median line running along the Cardinal Street in the city of LaPlace. On that fateful evening, Andrew slaves filed out to their quarters, attacked the slave drivers and the family of Manuel Andrew. In a short time, the slaves took control of the plantation. However, Manuel Andrew, the owner, was wounded but able to escape. He crossed the river to the west bank and sought aid in organizing forces to crush the revolt. Thus began a new stage in the revolt. Now the largest plantation on the east bank of the river in St. John the Baptist Parish had fallen and been added to the little greater area.
I see somebody not caring for that baby. I see people holding that baby by its arm. You don't do that to babies. You don't hold babies by their arm and dangle them in the air like the oppressor. You don't want to care for that baby? Don't you touch that baby.
In the action of the Andrew Plantation, the rebels took a few muskets and some sabers. They took the gunpowder from the nearby mill. But as soon as we found out later, the slaves were woefully short on weapons and ammunition. Apparently, the rebels were counting on a much larger haul of guns since Andrew had once housed a small arsenal at his place, and that he was commander for the parish for many years. However, it turned out that most of the weapons have been moved. One of y'all had moved them, one of y'all traitors. Since the revolutionary, Africans committed themselves to the very end. This corps of fighters armed themselves with what agricultural tools were at hand. They grabbed hold of hoes, machetes, clubs, tree wrenches, spears, and the like. What they lacked in guns, they made up with determination, strong organization, and discipline. As the rebels set out for the city, knowing that a stern and a difficult struggle lay ahead, we can imagine their minds return to the African elders who charmed them to die a glorious death rather than live a miserable life. Or maybe their minds recalled the challenge that John Jacques put the fellow revolutionary Africans in Haiti. Those who wish to die free, rally around me now. At each plantation, the slaves abandoned their task to join the rebels. Black power!
Black power!
Black power!
Black power!
I want to die.
Drop the thing off the mic. Stupid ass.
When I die. Ain't no more.
Repeat after me. We will say 3 times. Freedom or death. Repeat after me. And you will also stand as you say it. Standing tall with the arms on your feet. Freedom or death! Freedom or death! Freedom or death! Freedom or death! And I need all hands and fists, wrists. Put them in here. For the ancestors! For the ancestors!